For some reason or other, I always had this belief that weightlessness in space would begin at a certain altitude. And when I tried to find out exactly what altitude do you become weightless, I presumed in my simplistic way of thinking that as you moved away from the Earth's atmosphere, that weightlessness would automatically begin. And the other day I found that that is not actually the case. So this is a very interesting article here, and it says, you might think that astronauts are weightless because they are far from the Earth. So you might ask, what height above the Earth must astronauts reach to achieve weightlessness? But it's not any particular height or altitude that makes them weightless. Gravity is almost as strong at the height of the International Space Station as on the surface of the Earth, only about 10% weaker. Really? Now I never knew that before, and this does shed a whole new light. Yeah, so when we look at these pictures from the International Space Station, we are kind of wondering, well, this ship is not in a non-gravitation zone. It's actually got 90% of Earth's gravity. And the weightlessness caused is simply by free fall. In other words, the ship is traveling at such a speed around the Earth that its inertia is making everything inside the ship weightless. The same as on an airplane, when they want to achieve weightlessness, they actually take the plane to a great height and then set it into a free fall dive, and at a certain speed of descent, people on the plane become weightless. So this seems to be very different to what we see on the space station, where people are literally floating around with great ease. When you look at people in free fall on an aeroplane, they look extremely tense and stressed. And I guess the other thing is that if the space station is traveling at 17,000 miles an hour around the Earth, there must still be inertia throwing a person towards the back of the ship. But there does not appear to be any inertia, so it has to be kept in perfect balance, perfect speed. If the space station is traveling too slow, it will fall to Earth, and if it's traveling too fast, it will leave the Earth orbit. This makes me think that this situation appears to be unlikely. But anyway, let's compare it to some people who are in free fall in an airplane within the atmosphere. Basically, there should not be any difference. Free fall on a space station, free fall in an airplane. Yes, so this is weightlessness on the airplane that's in free fall. And obviously, it is very, very different to what we see in a space station. Very different. And keeping it weightless is obviously very, very difficult. And the plane, well, I don't know how fast it's going forwards, but obviously, completely different experience, right? So, this is actually quite a shock to find that people do not become weightless in space. People on the space station still subject to 90% of the Earth's gravity. 90%, and that's an awful lot. So the Apollo spacecraft was traveling away from the Earth at 24,500 miles per hour. And that means it still has the Earth's gravitational pull pulling back on the ship. So, as far as I understand it, the ship fired a burst of its thrusters, left Earth's orbit, and then just glided to the moon. It never fired any more boosters, so why didn't it slow down, for one thing, as 80% of the Earth's gravity is still present? And why were the astronauts not firmly glued to the back of the ship? Forgive me for being so stupid, but if gravity is still present and the ship is moving forward at 24,500 miles per hour, surely they should have still been experiencing extreme g-force. Please explain. And finally, we have some glorious photos of the moon, and somewhere hanging around these craters, we should see Apollo 17 and Apollo 15, I think. These photos are taken by an amateur photographer using a telescope, and as far as I can see, there does not seem to be any trace of a landing site. There should be two of them. So I know that NASA does produce these pictures, but I wanted to see independent verification. I can't see anything there. So I am very much in doubt about moon landings and space in general.